All right. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Tonight is going to be a good one. It's going to be just us. It's okay. We're going to bring the folks back. We're going to bring folks back. But tonight is going to be more of a little bit of a history lesson. So, welcome to the Real Precious Network. Thank you guys so much for being here. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the history of adoption and parts of its history. I don't want to say the origin of where adoption started. However, this is something very important to the history of adoption. So I have a few videos tonight. We're going to get into it. We'll probably be about an hour and a half. We'll see. We'll see where the show goes. But welcome, welcome, welcome. Definitely hit the like button as you come in. Share this video, share this live, share. Sharing is caring. Share it to those who are adoptive parents, those who were in foster care, because the clips that I'm going to show tonight is more so not necessarily, it is adoption, but first you really go through foster care, and sometimes that step is skipped depending on your age and the situation. But we'll see tonight how things pan out back in the 1920s with Miss Georgia Tann. We're definitely going to just hop right into that video. But thank you so much for being here. Hola, hola, hola. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Definitely hit that like button, share, subscribe to the channel. So you know when we're going live. But it's every Tuesday evening, 9 p.m. right here, every Tuesday. It's been a busy couple of weeks, and so I didn't want to cancel our show. I did cancel my Wednesday show for last week and this week, so I could get some things done. I didn't want to not have the bandwidth or do it and be tired. But I'm going to always show up for the Adoptee Foster Show, because I believe that we advocate for adoptees, we advocate for foster children, we even advocate for adoptive parents. We just, want there to be a common understanding between all parties. And, we do help others who don't have a voice discover their voice. 3 a.m. always says he never talked about adoption. He never had these conversations out loud until he found out that I was adopted. And, there's nothing wrong with sharing your truth. I think for so long, us adoptees are either in the dark. We're not told things. Y'all be rummaging through y'all parents' stuff, trying to find documents, trying to find, the sealed stuff. And so, coming into this community and being here is an opportunity for those who were never comfortable talking about their adoption or the feelings and the thoughts towards their adoption. You're definitely more than welcome. It's a safe space. We welcome you. And I will drop the link if anybody does want to join the show tonight. That's an adoptee, former foster child, or an adoptive parent. I will open the show to anyone who wants to join. My only rule: no disrespect, okay? All right. And you don't necessarily have to show your face at all. However, when you're in the backstage, I do need to see your face. Please don't come up here like this. Like, just don't. Okay. I need to see your entire face. Make sure you are a human being. You're not up here to do no foolishness. Okay. Because that is not allowed. However, you are welcome. Okay, so we're gonna get into this first video, but before we do, I'm being rude. How are you? 3 a.m.
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing
How was
well.
your weekend?
It was good. It was good. Busy, but it was good. Actually, no. Friday was a little busy. Saturday I relaxed all day. I felt like a bum. I was stuck to my couch because I was watching Polygamous, the Polygamous on
I
that.
heard about. I've been seeing about that show on my
Man,
friends list.
let me
Maybe-
tell you something. May that never ever find me. Ever. Ever. All right. I'd rather live underneath a rock next to a train station or something than rather be caught up in that. But yeah, it was 22 episodes, and I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. And yeah.
You watch all 22?
I did. It was a 2-day process. It wasn't all of that. It was a 2-day process, but I did watch all 22, and that is I could see why it's going number one, on Netflix. especially in South Africa. That's where they first, showed it or aired it, and then it was available to us. But my thing is, and then we're going to get to the stuff. But my thing is, I see a lot of clips now because Big Brother is watching. So no matter what you watch, you then see, in your feed and
Hmm.
media and stuff like that. And these folks are speaking good old English. I'm like, so they had the African, they were speaking their language, but had the American subtitles. I was like, okay, if they're gonna show it to their audience, I can understand that. But I'm like, but it wasn't too bad because I usually don't watch movies where they speak in another language and then they have the English. I'm like, I don't, but it captured my attention. All right. So tonight we're going to talk about Georgia Tann. I'm going to put this video up and then I'm going to give you a little bit more history than what this woman in this clip is giving. But we're going to get into it. We're going to get into it.
Hate this woman by the end of this video. This is Georgia Tann, and she is the most notorious child kidnapper in American history. She was responsible for trafficking over 5,000 children, and hardly anyone knows who she was. I just did a 2-part series on her for the Heart Starts Pounding podcast, and to show you how horrible she was, let me tell you a story. One night in Memphis in the 1940s, a woman gave birth. She was given a lot of anesthetic, so she was pretty out of it. But when she comes to, she sees that there's a woman standing in her room, and that woman is Georgia Tann. And she tells this woman that she's a social worker, and she's running this new program for new single mothers who need help, saying that she'll take the baby for a couple of days while the new mom gets back on her feet. And the new mom that hears this is thrilled because she needs as much help as she can get. So Georgia takes the baby, has the mom just sign some paperwork saying it's all okay, and then Georgia and the child are never seen again. And this was a huge part of her trafficking scheme because the paperwork they were signing was actually drafted by her father, who was a judge. And it rescinded all of their parental rights, but the moms didn't know that's what they were signing because they were still so out of it from the anesthetic. The children would then be put up for sale, and because these mothers were single...
You see this newspaper clipping, 3 a.m.? That's how they were put up for sale. Remember you asked me like, hey, were you ever in the newspaper? I'm like, I don't think so.
So I am still searching for that clip. So I don't know if it was the Detroit News or if it was the Free Press or like another local newspaper, but I seen this clip when I was a kid. My mother had built like a scrapbook for me and it had that picture in it and it has the story of me um, looking to get adopted. So when I was in Detroit, I didn't get a chance to go to the library because a lot of I don't know about where like in New Jersey, so like a lot of the stuff is still it's on microfilm. So
Mm.
you can't just like search for it's not digitally available. So I think I'm going to have to write them a letter to see if they can actually find it because they charge like I don't know, they charge like 20 some dollars an hour to search for it. Yeah.
And
It's
it's gonna take
crazy.
a billion years to try and get what? $20 an hour.
Yeah.
So they put them in a newspaper um,
Hmm.
and advertise these babies to be being eligible for adoption.
and poor, oftentimes no one wanted to help them. I know it sounds like it's straight out of a horror movie, but a lot of people were affected by this. I mean, even Ric Flair was one of the trafficked children. There is a
Pause it.
lot more
Pause
to
it.
this story. And
I had been meaning. Did I send you that video? He was on Club Shay Shay talking about this. He didn't go into detail about the trafficking, but he did mention it, and I was meaning to send you um, that episode from Club Shay Shay. I don't know if you're into wrestling, but you know Ric Flair is, right?
Yeah, but I'm not into wrestling, but
Yeah.
I've heard the name before.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah. So I just we were talking about it, and then I had ran across that interview with him on Club Shay Shay. Like I
I'm
said, he
trying.
didn't get into like the trafficking part, but he did mention it, but he didn't really like go into it. So um, I just thought that was interesting that I ran across that.
I saw it a little earlier. I'm trying to find it. Um, but yes, he was one of the children who was a victim of this scheme,
Mhm.
this, pretty much trafficking of children. And, he pretty much says, like, a family member reached out to him and he didn't want any parts. He thought he was looking for money. I believe it was his brother.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's, pretty much how the clip ended. I'm gonna see if I can get it here. But yes, he definitely was a victim of this child trafficking uh
Yeah. So
activity.
let me just provide a little history. So when I was doing some research on her, I was baffled actually.
Mm,
She was very bold.
yeah,
Like that clip you show where she walks up to the lady in the hospital and says, "I can help you." Um, and she was doing the same thing. So like she felt like um, poor people or people who were single mothers were not fit to actually care for children. And so what she would do is probably a car her father bought her. You know, she would just drive up to kids and like kind of offer them candy
in a
and
park.
say, "Yeah, and do you want to come with me?" And then the kids are then she does whatever she does after that, and allegedly they're saying that she basically trafficked like over 5,000 kids.
Yeah. Yep. Georgia Tann stole 5,000 babies in the US and put them up for adoption. She did this between the 1920s and 1950s. She was
Hmm.
the head of a state backed adoption agency in Tennessee and stole babies from poor mothers. She faked their records and sold them for profit. Hospitals, judges, even the governor looked away. This wasn't underground, it was official. Mothers were told their babies had died. Can you imagine, especially ladies in the chat? Can you imagine having a child and I know when I had my daughter, I was like, "She's not leaving the room. I'm breastfeeding. Y'all ain't taking her nowhere. Keep her right here. Change her right here. Do whatever you need to do right here."
Not
But could
leaving
you
my eyes.
Right. I couldn't imagine having a child and them taking the child to, because I don't even know if it's mandatory for them to take the child out the room. I just demanded that my daughter not be taken out the room. But
Hmm.
could you imagine them taking the baby out the room, coming back in without the baby and telling you that your baby died, that your baby's no longer here, or making up some story? I'm sure the baby comes out crying, right? You have to experience that part. But yeah, she told them that their babies had died. Others were coerced or tricked into signing papers. So they're coming out of whether it's a C-section procedure, or maybe you had an epidural and you're still, having the excitement and the adrenaline rush of actually
Hmm.
having a baby, because that is a lot on a woman's body, and being offered paperwork right there in the room, and not really knowing what you're signing. This is why it's so important to have people advocate for you. It's important for you not to go to a hospital alone. I just saw a video where they gave the guy the bill before he even left the hospital. I'm like, well, now I know they ask you for your life history, while you're in there. I mean, your
Hmm.
leg could be falling off and they on the side of the bed, like, and do you have your insurance card? It's important for you to be knowledgeable. And if you're not knowledgeable, go with someone who is very knowledgeable. Like I said, when I had my daughter, it was hard for me to look to my mom for any type of advice or any type of be careful for this or be careful, because my mom couldn't have kids. And so I did have someone else in the room who was an experienced mother, and she helped other young ladies,
Hmm.
um, with and support them throughout their delivery. But Georgia Tann, she coerced the and tricked the mothers into signing papers. And some children were taken right off porches or playgrounds, like you were just talking about. 3 a.m. She would just ride up to them and see them in a park and try to talk to them and coerce them to get in the car with her. Adoptive parents paid between $500 and $5,000 per child. Babies were renamed and their files were destroyed. Most were never reunited with their real families, like Ric Flair. Trans clients included celebrities and politicians. Even Joe Crawford adopted through her. Some didn't know the truth, and others did. Inside the home, kids were abused and neglected. Over 500 children died. Many were buried in unmarked graves. Can you imagine? Tann had protection. Judge Camille Kelly approved nearly all of her adoptions. She had ties to the Tennessee governor and faced no oversight. By 1950, the truth had came out. And so by that time, Georgia Tann was dying of cancer. And so she never was charged. You know, they had just started the paperwork to charge her, and she died of cancer, and she was never arrested, and pretty much died a free woman. Survivors still search for answers. Many will never know their real names. They'll never know their real birth dates or families. Entire lives were erased. This was one of America's largest scandals, run by states and hidden for decades. It didn't happen in the shadows, it happened in broad daylight. And thousands are still living with the aftermath. So, you know, between 1920 and 1950, this is what was going on with children in hospitals. People, and she was a caseworker. Like, that was her profession. That's what she did.
Yeah, she actually got fired from one of the places she was working because she was trying to take over the place. And that's actually what she did in the next role that she got. She actually promoted herself to director of the social services. And that's when she came up with this elaborate scheme to start to try to, traffic all of these babies. And I think they just stumbled across this by habit, by mistake, actually, to be honest.
Mhm.
Um, and when they dug into it, you know, they were, I'm sure they were just like, what the heck, you know?
Yes and no, because there were people who supported her in doing this. So I think the people, of course, who had no idea and thinking that she's just this wonderful woman doing
Hmm.
these wonderful things for these children. And in all reality, she was stealing them, she was trafficking them, she was erasing their history, she was lying to parents, telling them that their children had died.
Hmm.
So, I, I it's wild that when they started filing paperwork against her, it's like, sometimes I hate to say it like this, but sometimes the Lord gonna circle the block. Okay, you don't have to do nothing. Yes, it was in Tennessee. However, it happened all over the place. And what's sad about this is that it is still happening. This is not something that just stopped in 1950. This is something that continues to happen. You have women in the hospital giving birth. I have countless of videos. I was like, which one do I show? Like, which one do I put up there? Because there are countless of videos of women being in the hospital and CPS and police officers in the room snatching babies from their arms. Let me see if I don't have this video up in the background here, but let me see if I can. Let me see if I have this particular one. Okay. For those who just joined, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm gonna put this video up because it gives more in depth of it not just being in Tennessee, but other places as well. She sold these babies. So this originated, in Tennessee. However, she sold the babies to a lot of families in New York as well as California. And so, far from where they originally were.
States are taking children, giving them to somebody else for money that they get from the federal government. That means that all 50 states are involved in government subsidized child trafficking.
All 50 states, not just a couple, not just a little sprinkle, all of them.
It's a ring. It is the largest and most pervasive child trafficking ring in the history of the world by sheer money and numbers.
Children are seized unnecessarily from their families due to the federal aid. And
look at the way he yanked the baby. Like you wouldn't even know a baby was in the way he yanked the baby from her arm.
Titled the Adoption and Safe Families Act.
It was put into law in 1997 by Bill and Hillary Clinton, and I said it that
was the year I was adopted, child.
That way on purpose. And it is a law that literally steals money from the Social Security Fund and gives this money to the states in order to incentivize them to kidnap babies.
To receive the adoption incentive.
Yes.
Get out of town.
In 97, again, the year I was adopted. So sometimes I'll be like, incentive.
Where my kickback?
was I a little carrot? Like, you know what I mean?
Incentives or bonuses. Local CPS must have more children. They must have more merchandise to sell.
Every child, once you've added it all up, is worth approximately $1 million to the state. But we've been told that this is a $60 to $80 billion a year industry, meaning the federal government is taking $80 billion a year and giving that money to all of the 50 states to kidnap children.
Parents are victimized by the system that makes a profit for holding children longer and bonuses for not returning children to their.
So they got bonuses if there was no reunification. We all know, and if you don't know, the goal of foster care is for the children to actually go back to their parents. The parents are supposed to go through, or the mom is supposed to go through, maybe a home aid. Maybe she has to do some classes. Maybe there is, a certain procedure or process in place for her to then get her children back. However, on the other side of things, her children are in a system that actually incentivizes, that actually gives bonuses to the state if those children are never returned to their home. So is reunification really the goal of foster care?
No.
Parents.
But their own statistics state that 83% of all children who are taken by CPS, Child Protective Services, are for unsubstantiated allegations, meaning never should it have happened in the first place. So that imagine anything else in the world where you get it wrong 83% of the time and you admit it, but you just keep doing it.
You get it wrong 83% of the time. It's known that this is the wrong way to do things, yet you continue to do it because of the money.
Yeah, and it was just like that video. You remember, it was a while ago you showed it, where the lady, she worked for CPS. I think it might have been in Kansas City or somewhere, and she was talking about how they basically were incentivized, if they lied about the position that the kids were in, or like they would lie and say like the house was unfit or the parents were not fit to take care of the kids. But then like when they showed the videos, the houses were really clean and they didn't look out of order at all.
Yeah. So the caseworkers would twist the words of the parents. They would pretty much they knew the verbiage that would keep a child in the state's care. They knew what needed to be said. They knew what needed to be documented in order for these children to stay in the care of the state. and they would do it. I have another video too. Again, I remember before the show I told you everything went away, but I'll get it back. So we're gonna finish this video.
Case workers and social workers are often guilty of fraud. They withhold and destroy evidence.
We were just talking about that.
Yep. I didn't even realize that was the end of the video. And it's true. It is very, very true. It's funny. My sister and I were talking between yesterday, today. We've just kind of been brainstorming and going through some things, but she was saying how she's like, I want to work with the kids because of what I've been through and da 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 da. I was like, sis, you might think you want to do that. You could still do that, but and I thought I wanted to do that. I was going back to school for my master's in social work. I was in the classes and everything, online classes. And then I said, you know what? I don't want to do this, because the way that we care and our passion towards this, because we lived it firsthand, knowing who we are and how we would care for the children and how we would empathize because we've been there before, knowing that, but also knowing corporate America, and corporate America is about quotas, period.
I get fired right away.
Numbers. About quotas, numbers, deadlines. They don't care about the feelings. They don't care about the psychological abuse, the emotional abuse, physical abuse that these kids go through. They don't care. They really don't care about any of that, right? As if they're out of one home, they're immediately put into another home. So I sometimes wonder about the screening that a lot of foster parents go through and how extensive it is, because you hear so many horror stories about children in foster care. We had
And then I had read like they're not even required to do a follow-up after the adoption is completed.
Who's not required to do a follow-up?
The social worker.
Well, I'm not sure if that's true, but I mean, it could be. It could be. I honestly, it's one of those when my case is closed, again, you're a caseworker, meaning a lot of caseworkers come in and they have desk full of piles stacked high, right? And so their thought is not, oh, let me go through this case, let me really see what's going on. Their thought is, all right, this file is moved from the need to get done file to the done file. And now we're going on to the next thing. We're going on to the next folder. I feel sometimes is like that with court cases and public defenders and things of that nature, where you have so many cases that you really you don't have any time to empathize or sympathize, or your feelings really don't matter in the situation. It's getting the job done, and what's going to get the job done. Is it a emergency home? Is it me taking this child from my backseat and putting them in your living room? What exactly is going to get the job done? And I think in a lot of cases, getting the job done is not all that needs to be done. These kids need more than just being transported from house to house to house to house with a black trash bag. They need more than that. I wanted to show this next video because you'll see the actual how children actually respond to being taken away from their home, because in the adult's mind, it's we're taking you from one home and we're putting you in another, and everything is supposed to be fine. Your well-being is going to be fine. Your physical environment is going to be fine. However, they do not take into account the emotional turmoil that a child goes throughout this process, especially if reunification is not happening. That means that child is either staying in that foster home for a little while longer, because we know foster care is a temporary placement before a child either goes to another foster care home or they are adopted. So it says Malika and Zayaya, I hope I'm saying that right, Robinson were never abused until they were kidnapped by the county of San Diego. And just look at the district, look at both children, but obviously the first child here is crying, but you could just see how the other child is totally detached.
We'll see you soon. Sure. Hold your sister's hand. Malika, can you hold her hand?
Malika, like, no, I don't want to be here either. Like, no. But you see how emotionally detached. And honestly, it's a depiction of foster children, even adopted children. You may have one child that's emotionally going buck wild. Like, you gonna hear me, you're gonna see me, you're gonna know that I'm in some type of distress. And then you have another child who is distressed too, but they're keeping it all inside. And remember when Julie was here, the trauma informed adoption coach, right? She was here. And she said, and I asked her and I said, you know, what is one thing you want adopted parents to know? Like, what's that one thing you want to know? And she said that you're dealing with a ticking time bomb. That girl all the way over by the window in that car seat that didn't want to hold her sister's hand, she's going to be a ticking time bomb at some point or another.
And 1 minute it's just going to, like you say, it's just going to come out in some form or fashion. It may not be crying. It may not be, you know, it may be some kind of, you know, situation that arises, and then, you know, it might not be until 5 years from now. You know,
it might be simple. It might be
yeah.
she might be going into a store and her parent goes out in front of her and leaves her in the store. It could be something that triggers the thought of being left, or the thought of being abandoned, or the thought of having there to be distance between your loved one and yourself. I remember one time, I was triggered. Okay. I remember one time after we got adopted, it was me, my mom, and my brother. And I'll never forget, my mom had this white Nissan Stanza with the seatbelt that goes like it, right? And one time we were leaving out the house, and my mom and my brother, they got in the car, and my mom drove off. And I was standing there and I was crying. Like, why are y'all leaving me? Like, didn't realize it was a joke, didn't take it as a joke. It was just like, don't
She's like, this ain't funny.
It's not funny. I already told y'all to send me back. Like, come on, stop giving me a reason. Like, don't give me a reason. But it's things like that that will trigger that separation anxiety. Because again, Julie talked about how, and you know, we hear this a lot in the adoption community, how the body keeps score. So while that little girl may not have any words to put towards what's going on in this very moment, her body is going to live in that gut. Like she was saying, is going to live in your gut.
No.
I know, Mama. I know, it's okay. It's fine. I'll see you Tuesday. I'll see you Tuesday.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Oh, she's crying.
See you tomorrow. She want that orange juice?
She does, but she can't have it.
It's heartbreaking.
It says, does it look like a family that must be terminated? You know, they are very loving. They're loving up on the baby, but it has to be hard for them too, to know that 2 of their children are being taken away. And now they have to have visitation as if they're the you know, they're not the birth family.
We'll see you tomorrow. I know.
The County of San Diego Child and Family Wellbeing thinks so because they are being exposed for their abuse and being a child trafficking network. So now we're going to expose you, and you're going to just keep our kids.
Don't leave yourself, baby.
We will see you tomorrow. We're going to a different mall.
Malika and Malika and her sister Robinson need your help. Say their name, share their story, and help save them. And that honestly, I wasn't like wild or screaming like that, but when I got adopted, I cried the entire car ride from North Jersey to South Jersey. I cried the entire hour and 15, 30 minutes, whatever it was, the entire time. And, for someone that is not your biological parent or someone that you're very familiar with, the child is not even looking for comfort from you because in essence you're a stranger. And so who knows how long it took for that baby to stop crying? Who knows what it took for them to finally get her settled? It's going to start back up again. It's going to be a case where again there's going to be some little thing or some little occurrence that happens that
Mhm.
triggers that feeling within. And then her sister, again, she's a ticking time bomb. She's going to have something that triggers her as well. And that's why therapy, is so important. That's why I feel like we should have lifelong therapy because look how young they are. They're going to remember that. Their body is going to remember that. And they're not going to understand why they may be distant from others. They're not going to understand why they don't feel like they fit in. They're not going to understand that. Their parents are never going to forget that, especially if they never made it back to their parents. I don't know how old that story is, but who knows if the parents ever got help. It seems like when you are in and when you have a case in child protective services, CPS, child welfare service, whatever it is called in your state, it's almost like you're in, the jaws of a whale. Like you can't get out of it. It's hard for you to defend your name when people are able to lie, when people are able to twist the truth, and when things like what Georgia Tann was doing, when that's the case, it's hard to escape that. I did want to get into, you mentioned a CPS worker, and I found a video. Oh, you know what? Before I do that, I'm going to drop the link because I did say if anybody wanted to join, you could join. Going to drop the link here for anyone who wants to join, foster parent, adoptive parent, adoptee, anyone who's just has a question.
So I have a question for you. When you were adopted, I mean, since you were older and you remember a lot of the stuff, like how long do you think it took for you to one stop crying and to accept like that, you were never going back to where you were happy at?
Hmm. Well, I memean, the crying eventually stopped. It then became out. It then came out in my behavior. So, like, I was always on punishment. I was getting, suspended from school. I mean, I wasn't doing bad things, but it was just emotionally, I was not emotionally regular. Like that threw me all the way off because I never
Mhm.
acted like that at my foster home. Like I didn't have behavioral issues before I got adopted. I even reached out to my foster mom and I asked her, not recently, but maybe a year or two ago, maybe 3 years ago now. I asked her, I said, how was I as a child? Like, was I bad? Was I, did you have any issues with me? I reached out to her too to actually ask her advice about something that I was going through with my daughter at the time. My daughter was younger. And I said, well, how was I? Just trying to kind of recount some memories of when I was
Mhm.
younger. She was like, you didn't give me any issues. She was like, and when I did send you to your room, you would just read. You would read books. But for the most part, you were a good kid. And so even her saying that really pretty much confirmed that for me, adoption was traumatic. And it wasn't traumatic because I was taken away from my birth mom or my birth father or
Mhm.
that. It was traumatic because I was taken away from an environment that I knew and placed in an environment that I didn't know with people that I didn't know. And now I have to, make these connections all over again. And I felt alone. I felt like, yes, I was adopted with my brother, but we were separated when I was 2, he was 1, and put into different foster homes when my aunt passed away. And
Mhm.
so, although I was adopted with him, I still barely knew my brother. I knew my friends more than I knew my brother.
Mhm.
So it just was a very isolating experience for me. It took a while. It took a while for me to accept I'm not going back to my friends. I'm not going back to my foster mom who I loved down. Like she was like my Mary J. Blige. Like she introduced me to the 90s music. I remember when I first got my first tape cassette of Immature. Like, I have those fond memories and just
Mhm.
knowing that I wasn't going back to that, the crying turned into anger and behavioral issues, and honestly, I don't think that I needed it to be disciplined, but I was disciplined for my behavior when I really needed, someone to actually hear my pain. But it came out in behavioral issues. And a lot of times that's how it comes out in children because you're put in a new environment with people you don't even know. So it's almost like when you're having guests for dinner, right? It's like, all right, set the table, make sure every hair is in place and make sure you're looking good and smelling good. Like, so you don't want to be out of place by being the kid that needs the attention or the kid that is rocking the boat. Being in a new environment, you're trying to scope it out for yourselves.
Mhm.
So it took a while. It took a while. I would just go to the window and I would just start crying. Like, I just wish I could go back. I wish I could go back. I used to think like if I click my heels 3 times.
Yeah, I told you I used to daydream a lot. So, and I don't know what I was thinking about, but like like you, I would just look out the window, watch. I wouldn't even go outside with the kids for a while. I just just thoughts thinking about whatever, or just I told you when I was in um when I was in grade school, I used to get in trouble a lot because I was not paying attention because I would be, my mind would just be somewhere else.
Mhm.
And this was going all the way up to 6th grade, you know. So, um I was just curious about what, you know, when you say your behavior, like were you talking back to your parents or were you just not
Um,
responding the way that they was hoping that you would respond or the way that they yeah, so how sometimes people when you respond a certain way, it's not how they want it's not how they want to receive it,
mhm.
but was that what your parents was interpreting basically is how you were basically responding to certain things?
Probably. I probably had a slick mouth. I was thirsty. Um,
Probably.
that was because I really don't honestly. I'm the way that my mind works, if it's been a while, like you would, my mind doesn't even register in it happening. Certain things, not everything, but certain things. But more so, I didn't connect with my adopted parents right away.
Mhm.
And just told you why. I had a bond. I had that
Yeah.
foundation in my world, in my child world. I had that and it was broken. It was taken away from me. And I didn't want to associate myself with anything else. It was hard for me to attach myself to people that I didn't know. Like I said, in Jersey City, I had my friends. And so when we got here, it was like I didn't have anyone to turn to, I didn't have anyone to hang out with. Then on top of that, my parents were really strict. So it felt extra isolating because I came
Mhm.
from an environment where we would go to this corner store, we would go to that corner store, we was at this friend's house, we was at, and nothing happened to us. We was in the hood. All right. I ain't gonna lie to you. We was in the hood. But it still was everyone just took care of everyone. And it just I just felt isolated by myself, couldn't really express myself. I would write, I would read. That's always been my go-to. That I don't think that'll ever change. But definitely probably attitude problems. I remember one time being in school and we was in a before school program. So this was like a program that you know sat in before you went to school, because my dad went to work in the morning, my mom worked at night, and so my dad
Mhm.
would drop us off at the before school program. My mom would get her rest throughout the day, and then she would pick us up later on. And then my mom was always late every day, picking us up every single day. That worked my nerves too. Like Jesus, like we already going through a lot. Please pick us up on time.
Mhm.
But I remember being in that program, and I was fourth grade when I got adopted, so we were still at Pennypackers, so it probably was like fourth, fifth grade. So it was very early on in the adoption, right? And so they were telling everybody to be quiet or settle down, and I think
Mhm.
I was still talking to my friends, and they was like, you better settle down or be quiet before we call the principal on you, right? And I was like, I don't care, you can call him. And they was like, well, you should say that to his face. When I said I don't care, you call, I'm not scared of his black behind. That's what I said out my mouth, okay? I said I'm not scared of his black. Jesus, Lord help me, what was I going through, Lord? So so they was like, oh well, we gonna call him down here. And they said, we're gonna call him down here and we want you to say it to his face. So he came down and I said, I'm not scared of your black behind. Suspended. I was suspended. Saw my mom white stands that come up to the school again. I'm like, Lord. But that again, I did need help with my mouth. So that, I'm not gonna lie, I did need help with that because like I said, when I went to therapy, it was just like I would just say whatever. Like, but that's one thing I do remember. I remember one time I got suspended for fighting and I wasn't even trying to fight nobody. It was like I was just pushed into a fight. And I'm like, how did I get here? Like, how in the world did I just get pushed? Because I was a girl from North Jersey, and I whipped that girl. I was like, well, y'all want to see a fight? You want to see a fight? And they saw a fight, and I'll never forget. When we moved to the town over, there was somebody that went to that elementary school. His name was Julian. I'll never forget. And he came to school. He said, Michelle, remember when you whipped Amber's ass? I said, let's leave the past behind us, okay? Let's leave the past behind us. I'm a changed person, but yes, I do remember. I said, I didn't even do nothing. They just pushed me in to the crowd, and the next thing you know is a whole crowd around us. But that's what happens. Those behavioral kinks got to be worked out. They have to be.
Mhm.
And again, I don't think that it all deserves discipline. I was always disciplined. Like it was just like, yeah, no, ain't no talking. There's no soft parenting. You're on punishment. You getting a whooping. And I didn't receive that well because I don't remember getting whoopings when I was in foster care. I remember, being sent to my room, but it was never no physical, where I felt like I didn't like you after you disciplined me. Like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But that was the kind of home that I grew up in, and that didn't help either because you need a mixture of things when you're adopted. You can't just discipline. There has to be conversations. There has to be, again, you have to hold space for your children to have these emotions. You have to be good judges of character of how to deal with your children. And if you don't know how, then you shouldn't rely on how you were raised because I hate to say it, we didn't come from you. Like, you know what I mean? We didn't come from this lineage. And so
Mhm.
in your past or whatever, past traumas that you're dealing with, you can't take that out on children that you adopt. Like, it's just not going to. Now I turned out all right. Like, you know what I mean? I turned out okay. But looking back, it's like, I needed more of, even if, because my mom was more the mushy one, my dad wasn't. And my mom, it was more so my mom, like, she's not connecting. She doesn't want anything to do with us. She's angry. So even if there was more hugs, or even if there was more of that, I don't even know if that would have helped me. I think I needed additional assistance even past my parents who adopted me. Like I needed someone who truly understood, or maybe I needed a mentor at that time, or maybe I needed a child
Mhm.
psychologist that I could, go to. I don't think family therapy is enough. I think you need someone who actually specializes in children and children's behavior. Um, but yeah, I know my parents was like, what do we do? Because my brother was more so the quiet one and things of that nature, but he didn't come from a foster home like I came from. He needed to get out of his foster home, where it was just like I didn't necessarily need that, but because my foster mom at that time was having her own child, it just was a circumstance where she just couldn't keep both of us. Like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah, and
I'm
I was more. I guess I was more like that other baby that wasn't crying.
mhm,
Like I was more like I think just trying to figure out. Not saying that I was ready to explode at any moment, but I probably was. But um, you know, like I said before, I went to a lot of speech therapy, hearing therapy,
mhm,
because they didn't think I could talk at first. And it was probably just, me trying to be secure in this environment, because the environment I came from, I wasn't so secure.
right.
So, um, once that phase passed, I didn't really, I mean, I had moments like, I told a story about, when I tried to run away, and my mother was like, where you going? And do you want me to help you pack? And I know she was more or less trying to break the ice.
Right.
She was trying to, yeah, my mother, just like your mother, she was the more softer one, but she still disciplined me, like she still would whoop me. My father would, I would get, obviously my father, he would, he would try to
There.
make sure, he tried to make sure I could sit down, but, um,
Yeah, we had to go get the belt. Like, go get the belt. Like, dang, you want me to go get it too? Oh God, Lee.
mhm. We used to have we had a broom closet in our house, and like the belt would like just sit like on a loop, and like go get the belt, you know where it is,
Mm,
and
mm.
but
That's funny.
yeah, I agree. Like I think I don't see anything wrong with some form of discipline, like if it's physical, or if it's just, go, take, like in today's environment, taking away a phone or tablet is punishment, because everything is connected to the internet, right? Like, so, if you take that, that would be a way of punishing. But yeah, I mean, I had moments throughout, my upbringing, so it wasn't like it was. I'm not saying that I didn't get in trouble. I mean, I got in trouble.
Yeah.
Um, almost got kicked out of Detroit Public Schools for having a fight.
Mm.
So, yeah, this guy, he kept picking on me, and one day I just got fed up, and I said, this your, I said, this is your last time. And next thing you know, it took like 4 or 5 people to get me off of him.
Ticking time bomb. I'm telling you, it don't even have to be with your parents. Like a ticking time bomb is
And that probably was the moment. That probably was everything inside, and I was just like, you know what? I had enough.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, when people give you a reason, it's like, come on now.
Hmm.
I'm bothering you. Stop bothering me. But yeah, we would have to write 100 times. We would have to face the wall. Like there were just different. I mean, we ain't always get whipped, but my mom had a quick backhand. I'll tell you that. It was a while. Like my mom was the main one that I really didn't like because she primarily punished us. And it was just like, why every time I'm looking up, you know what I mean? You ready to like relax. So much I can take. But yeah, I mean, if you ask anybody, any person who even wasn't adopted, they got them stories where it's just like, yeah, I got whooped and da 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 da. But it's different. It really is different when you're doing it to kids that are not naturally yours, right? And again, I was 9, so y'all should have treated me like a baby from the start. Okay, they treated me like I was 9. They like, you could walk, you could talk, you know what I mean? But jokes aside, no matter what age you adopt a child, even if you are getting them at an older age, you have to treat them as if they're a baby emotionally, because I came in with experience before you, and now that experience has now been taken away from me. So now my emotions are all over the place. And so, because my parents didn't adopt babies, they dealt with us like we were 9 and 8. However, emotionally, we were a lot younger than that. Emotionally, I was younger than 9. I was going to the 4th grade and I was 9 years old, but emotionally coming into the situation, I was younger than 9. And these are not things that are necessarily taught or get, expressed to adoptive parents. Like, just know, just because she's 9 doesn't mean,
Doesn't mean you haven't
a
been
whole
through anything.
yeah, it was a whole 8 years you didn't have with. So coming into a home where that is the discipline structure, that is what's going on. There is no say. That's why I said in one of our shows to incorporate your adoptive kids, like you all should be writing some type of family rules, because adoptive children should have boundaries, and there should be things that they don't want, done or said, or whatever the case may be. It should be an inclusive thing, because we came into an environment and it's like, all right, now you're going to listen to us. It was given prison like a little bit. You know what I mean? We are the wardens. You want to listen to us? This is what's going to happen. And there was no say. There was no, well, how do you feel about this? How are you today? Are you better than yesterday? It was just like, we just went in like we were always there. And that to me was just like Twilight Zone. That's exactly what it was. And I was just like, what is happening in my life? It was a time. It was a time. I'm glad we passed it though. I'm going to play this video that I came up of a woman who is a CPS worker. I think before we started this conversation, I was saying how me and my sister was having a conversation, and she's like, I want to go into foster care, being a foster care caseworker, excuse me. And I said, you sure, sis? Because again, it's just a job. You're not going to be able to really have that passion. I said, there are a lot of different avenues where you can advocate for adoptees. And I don't think my sister was ever in foster care, but if she was in foster care with the parents who adopted her. But I said, it's not going to be what you think. And this woman in this video solidified everything that I said. And I had to send it to my sister. And I was like, see, I was trying to tell you.
About this for months because legally I couldn't speak out and say anything. But since I quit, I'm about to give y'all the real. CPS is exactly what we think it is. I also have my own theories about this whole foster care CPS shit, but I'm scared to even speak on that. Growing up, you would always hear people say,
I feel like she said she was scared to speak on it because it's a trafficking ring. Yeah, that's why.
Hey, CPS ain't shit, or they would be talking about CPS in movies like CPS is just the worst. When I tell y'all they were not lying, they were not lying. Now, I can't speak for every state. I can only speak for the state I worked in. I really don't even know where to start, but I started working for CPS And I'm so excited. I've never been this excited for a job before. Like when I got the email that I had an interview, whatever, when I got the email that I got the job, I was crying. Like I really felt like, I'm going to be able to make a difference, because me and my siblings were physically and verbally abused. So to me, it just meant something to me to be able to be put in a position where I could help kids, families, whatever. But after a while of working with them, it didn't feel good to me. It didn't sit right with me. It felt more so like, fuck the kids, guys. Let's meet these deadlines. That's just what it felt like to me. So I'm gonna give y'all one incident that really was like, made me realize. So I had a 15-year-old on my caseload, and she ended up getting caught doing something, and she got in trouble by her caregiver. She asked her caregiver to call me. So she called me, she's telling me whatever, and in the conversation she says, like, she alludes to the fact that she's going to self-harm. Okay, so at that point, now you gotta go to a mental facility because you're threatening. Yeah. So she ends up going to the facility, and then I'm planning out my next week or whatever, and I'm telling my supervisor, like, I gotta do this, I gotta go visit my girl in the facility. And she's like, visit her for what? And I was like, because she was placed there and I need to talk to her.
Mind you, she's in a mental facility at this point in time. So she's no longer in the home that she's in. She's at a mental facility, and her caseworker, which is this young lady, says, I want to go see her. I want to go visit her. Caseworker is like, for what?
See her, make sure she's good, explain to her why she's here. If she doesn't have, I need to see her. What are you talking about? And she was like, oh no, we have documents to upload. We have documents to do. We have this and this and this to do. Mind you, she was there for a week. So at any point, I could have took 2 hours out of my whatever I had to do to go see her, talk to her, and make sure she was good. She was like, no, you spent a lot of time on that case already. Let's work on something else. What? And I started to realize very quickly that this shit is all about money. It's not about the children. It's not about families. It's about money. And now that I think back to my childhood, like, there were times where CPS came to my school in like elementary, middle school to talk to me, and nothing ever happened. Like, I went home and that was it. Nothing ever became of it.
So, from a former caseworker herself, and you hear a lot of caseworkers come out the woodwork saying the same exact thing. When I used to do panels, I used to do a panel with Chantel. I don't know if you know who that is on YouTube, but she has a channel. I want to say Chantel is Jamaican, but don't beat me up, girl, if you see this and you're not Jamaican. I know she's from the island somewhere.
Chantel Simone?
Yeah.
I've seen some of her content.
So I used to do panels with her, and I didn't know that she worked for Child Protective Services until I started doing my adoption content way back when. Mm-hmm. And so we had a show with her on, and she would say the same thing. She said she went into it excited, and then after, she said she had to quit. Like, she couldn't even continue to do it because she would get calls at 2-3 in the morning, having a child in the backseat of her car. Jamaican, okay, cool. Whew. She would get calls in the middle of the night. She would have to, the babies would just have on what they had on their backs, and she would have to find a placement for them. There was no room for compassion. There was no room for you to have your feelings towards these children. They were just another number in the system, and they had to be passed along because there were plenty more behind them. And so, I don't want to discourage anyone from going into the field, but if you're going to go into the field and you have this excitement and you're wanting to help these children, you can still do that. Just know that taking a job in this arena or in this subject matter is not going to equal the reality that you feel going in, because by the time so many people say they go into social work and they're caseworkers and they're burnt out. It's a burnout job because they don't care about you or the kids. They just need somebody to process all this fake paperwork. They need somebody to process all these kids. They need somebody to twist the stories. They need somebody to keep the kids in the system so they can get more. They can get more. They can get more. And on top of them getting more children means more money. And so if you are thinking about going into, that particular field, you yourself are going to be another number. Honestly, maybe nobody should be working for them, so they so they would have to figure out another way to
Mhm.
process and to get children in safe homes and in safe environments. Or how about the goal of foster care reunification? How about you pour those resources and that money into the biological family, the birth family, and help the birth family be able to get on their feet to then help said child or children? Why give the money to the state to keep the kids away? And God knows what's happening to these children. There's plenty of stories talking about how children go through the ringer. I thank the Lord, thank you, Jesus, that I never had a bad experience in foster care. I haven't. I can say that I've never had a bad experience in foster care. It's never been a part of my story, and I'm thankful for that. But I'm probably the minority in that situation. There are a lot of children who go through the foster care system and they are treated like trash.
Yeah, you and me both. Cause like, I mean, I assume I was in some kind of foster care holding, before I got adopted, but like I don't remember, any of that. So like, yeah, we are both blessed to not have experienced, you know, because you see all those stories where these, especially some of these white folks, they adopt black kids and they use them as slaves.
Right.
Like, um, so, um, yeah, I just, I thank God that, I had parents who were in it for the right reasons and were not in it, just to get a paycheck.
hmm we played the one show. I think it was before we came back or before I came back to YouTube
Hmm.
with the foster mom who had her foster child in the cages with the dogs. And the neighbor, do you remember that video? The neighbor came over and was like, "Why do you have this child in a cage?" And then he called the cops. We played that very early in like one of our first Instagram lives.
I think that was like in Texas or New Mexico or somewhere like
Yeah.
that.
And
Yeah,
she was like, she won't stop crying, or she like gave some excuse
yeah,
where you could tell that she was treating the dogs better than she was treating the girl that was in that cage screaming, screaming.
that's crazy work.
And that's why a lot of children, they run away. That's why a lot of foster children age out of the system, because they do have these behavioral issues, but it's because of what they're dealing with in their home life.
Yeah, and I already know, like, I couldn't, like, there are certain jobs I know I can't do. One
Right.
of them is social work. Two, work in a hospital,
Yep.
or three, be a police officer. Actually, I wanted to be a police officer when I was a kid, but then I started looking at like how much they got paid, and then like all of the stuff that was going on. I was like, man, no, I don't want to be a part of it. Like, I want to do something that's going to be, you know, more meaningful to my brain, and um, I just know that like I couldn't be a social worker.
Yeah, and the crazy part about it is, as we're growing up, in our minds, it's like we don't want anybody to go through what we went through, no matter what it was. I'm not saying from good to like from the worst stories to the not so bad,
Hmm.
no matter what it is. I mean, being taken away from your biological parents is trauma that lives inside of your body. So let's just keep it there, right? Knowing that you're going through that type of trauma, we are very empathetic to other children, and we in our minds say we don't want another child to go through that. We're going to be the ones to go into this industry. And a lot of people that are that are foster care, I mean, excuse me, caseworkers, were former foster children, former adoptees. And we have this passion to do it, but then you get older, you educate yourself, and you realize that, and you work yourself. I mean, any job that you work, you're going to have, goals. You're going to be expected to meet certain criteria. You're going to be expected to meet certain quotas. And so, knowing that, you then say, whoa, do I really want to do this? And so that's what I had to kind of, do with my sister. Like, sis, I know you have the passion for this. However, that's not going to correlate to what you'll be doing when you get in there. And you will, definitely probably have an effect on lives, but it's not going to be the way that you want to. So, how about looking at it in a different light and different avenues and ways that you can help adoptees or foster children without being a part of the system? Because we were in the system, and the system it's not necessarily for us. It's for a financial gain. It's for a financial gain. It's for a financial gain for the state. It's for a financial gain for the foster children. It's for a financial gain for adopted parents. Because, I mean, before we came along, there were no dependents to claim on taxes. There was no, now mind you, there is money that is put out because children do cost money. But like you saw in those videos, in 1997, they passed a law saying that we're going to give incentives for you guys to adopt. And we all know what incentives are. It ain't gummy bears. It ain't a trail mix. So, let's use our brains here. It's for that. And whatever child gets placed, you get placed where you place. I just think that more emotional and psychological and mental testing should go into parents who want to adopt. It shouldn't be if you have, just a safe home or a child-proof home. It shouldn't be just because you completed a certain amount of hours. It's like you complete this certain amount of hour of classwork, if you will, and it ain't even no freaking hand-on experience. Like, is it hours around other adoptees? Like, come on. Like, these are the things that adoptees need to speak up on and help change how the process goes. Because what exactly, what are y'all doing in these, 20, 24, 27 hours that's required for you to be an adoptive parent? What exactly are you going over, and how exactly are you being prepped for a child? And I always say that you can't really prep because it is a hands-on experience. But I believe if parents want to adopt children, they should be around those who are adopted. They know what could be a possible, topic of conversation, what could be a possible trigger, what could, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to give them hours, give them those type of hours, have them go to group homes, have them be, a mentor to a foster child or an adopted child. Have them be that person that's just sitting there observing, like something in that realm. Because I would love to be a fly on the wall on in those classes that they have to take in the mandatory, however many hours. I think it may be different for each state, but I would love to be a fly on the wall to see exactly what's going down during those sessions. Like, what exactly is being learned? What exactly have you learned, especially parents who don't have kids at all whatsoever?
Yeah, like what are they just watching the video and saying, "Oh, yeah, okay, you got your hours now."
Right. Right. So the last video that I'm going to play, and thank you so much to those who are joining. I hope you guys hit the like button. Let me read a couple of these. Coach Chelsea Lynn says you have to be mentally strong to do that. Cannot be me with how sensitive I am towards kids. Yes, I'll be crying at the drop of a dime. Like, hold on. Seriously, because like you, I know what I can and what I can't do. And
Mhm.
while it sounds good, while it's, you'd be a better person for it to somebody, it's like I couldn't do that. Just like a hospital, I wouldn't be able to stomach a lot of the stuff that comes in and out of those hospitals and administering medicine and shots. Like I that's just not for me.
But there are ways you can be impactful and
Right.
not be in those types of jobs. Like, remember I was telling you about the delegate here in Maryland. He was
Hmm.
adoptee, and he helped get one of the bills passed.
Yeah.
So like there are ways that like you don't have to be in social work to actually make an impact. Like you could be like an advocate like we're doing, or you can, get involved, volunteer, get into some of those types of things. But like, yeah, I don't think that actually going into social work is really beneficial for anyone, especially if they're not,
That's been through.
if they can't handle it.
Right. And even someone that's been it might make you even more upset with the system that you had to go through, right?
Mhm.
You'll be able to see things very up close if you subject yourself to that, and it
Mhm.
might piss you off even more, you know. So yes, there are definitely other programs. One program is called CASA, and it's a program where you can be a mentor to a foster child. I think I mentioned this to you before, but
Mhm.
I believe every state has it. Just look up CASA. You probably would just have to look up your town, your state.
Mhm.
But that's one way. You can. I believe you can be a mentor up to a foster child up until the time they either get adopted or they age out of the system. But I'm pretty sure by that time, you would have the consent from the foster child to either stay in their lives or
Mhm.
on. And I'm pretty sure that, those foster children will want you to stay in their lives, to have someone constant. The purpose of it is to have someone as a constant in their life, someone that they can
Mhm.
call, someone that they can say, hey, can you come here? Or someone that you can take to the movies or, just spend time with and just be that mentor. So there definitely are other avenues that you can go down without having to attach yourself to this child trafficking system.
Yeah, because you will lose. I mean, I you would lose hope for humanity if you actually were really excited, and then you go in there, and then like you see how easy it is for them to manipulate the records, manipulate the parents, the system, and I feel bad for somebody who would be excited, and then they get in there, and then they like you said, they just get more pissed off, and
At some
it's a
point,
shame.
you're going to be the one that's expected to manipulate and twist and coerce
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
not really tell the full truth, or you know what I mean? And who wants to be in that position? I bet you they don't tell you that in the job description. They don't tell you that. They don't tell you like you have to do everything in your power to keep these kids in the system. They don't tell you that. No, they
Mhm.
tell you you're making a difference. You're doing the Lord's work. Like, you know what I mean? They make it look glamorous, just like they make adopting children look glamorous. And it's just not.
Mhm.
Anybody that is a parent knows that it's not always the most glamorous job. It's not,
Mhm.
you know. And that's just the way that it should be presented. It should be presented with you will, endure challenges. You will sometimes feel like, why did I do this? The child may not connect with you. The child may have their times where they zone out. If you talk to a child psychologist and you talk to them about children who are adopted, like that video that we played tonight, we have this ability to zone out. Like, we have this ability to detach. We have this ability to just zone everything out and be in our own little world, because we know what that feels like. We know what that is. We're very familiar with that because we've had to retreat to that very often, right? We've
It's
had
like
to
a comfort space, you
right.
know, where
We've had
you can,
that.
yeah, where you just can't, like, it's like a space where you don't have to worry about anybody
Mhm.
telling you what to do, or, it's just you there looking out and, just figuring out whatever it is that you're trying to figure out at that moment.
Yep. One thing I used to love, so I majored in English, and one thing I used to love picture prompts because you have to stare at a picture and say what you see or write what you see.
Hmm.
And child, I used to just see everything. It just used to be so clear, but it used to be so abstract. But I used to love doing picture prompts because it could be whatever I wanted it to be. Um,
Hmm.
that was just one thing I used to love. There was also, I don't know if my parents got us this book or if it was a book that we had at school, but it was like a book. I can't even explain it. It was like a book that you looked at, but you had to look at it a certain way for the picture to like pop out at you. Do you know?
Hmm.
Well, do you remember those books? Anybody in the chat? Y'all know what I'm talking about? It used to be like it wasn't like a little book. It used to be like it was definitely bigger than 8.5 by 11. But it used to be like a book and you started like up close and then you slowly brung the book back and
I know what you're talking about. I'm familiar with those. Yeah.
yeah, some people would see it and then some people were like, I don't see it. I don't see it.
Hmm.
And I used to love those too. Do we even have things like that anymore? Gee, everybody looking at their phone. Everybody looking at the phone. Y'all remember? Y'all remember? Okay, okay. I'm glad I'm not the only one. I used to love those books. I wish if I could find. I'm gonna go to Barnes and Noble and see if I could. Magic pictures. Yes, at the naked eye, you can't see anything, but then you put it close and you take that thing back and you like, wait,
That's
I'm
just like
reading.
those. That's just like those spiral pictures, and they say, can you see the number? If
Yeah,
you look at it long enough, you can actually see like a few numbers, not just one number.
right, right. Yeah, I used to love those. I used to love those. All right, so this last video that I'm going to play is a perfect example of what to do. Excuse me. What to do if a CPS worker comes to your home and they are trying to remove your children from your home. This guy did it perfectly. So pay attention.
No, I can't.
Hold on. Let me take old girl away. Okay.
Show me the order.
Yes. If you would check your email, those orders have been sent to you.
Which email? Which email?
The one that is with the school.
Which email?
So I like how he's asking these questions. Like he's holding her accountable. Like, what email did you send it to? There was no court order. There is no paperwork. He's making it very clear and it's recorded on record so she can't twist his words. There's an officer
Hmm.
there too, but 9 times out of 10, the officer is really there for her and not for the father and his daughter.
Hmm.
But just look how he's he knows his stuff.
Hello, you sent the removal orders 3 minutes ago. I just forwarded them to my lawyer. There hasn't been a hearing, so you can't take my children right now. I will not open the door to you. We're going to follow this up with suit against you and family services.
Sue them, sue their pants off.
Get
I
him.
like how he said, look, you just sent this to me 3 minutes ago. I sent it to my lawyer. Even if you ain't got a lawyer, just say those words. One reason why I got into English is because words are important and words mean things.
Hmm.
And I think people take for granted how we can just throw words around, how we can make up our own words, how we have our own vernacular, how you know what I mean? But when you are dealing with the state, when you are dealing with the government, when you are in court, anything that can be filed and paid for and stamped, have a
Hmm.
stamp, a seal, anything, you have to be careful with the words that you use. And he was very careful with the words that he used, but also very proactive with the words that he used as well. Because you should know, if you don't know by now, we've been saying it, that they will twist your words. So using very clear and concise words is to your benefit, to your advantage.
This is an illegal tactic and a deep violation of my civil rights. I already have the video evidence that I needed, and I was already seeking civil rights litigation. This is just going to be another one on top of it. There has not been a hearing. There is no removal order. This is something that you have submitted to the court, and you just sent it to me 3 minutes ago. I have the timestamp on when you sent it to me, and you sent it to my work email, not the email I have on file with the school.
They're going to send it to his work email. It's like, what measures will you guys take? Seriously.
Which is my Gmail. You're a liar. It's obvious from your demeanor. It's obvious from your demeanor that you are ill-intended. Also, you're shifty, you're shady, you're self-soothing with your hand, and I don't trust you. I will not open the door. You're free to break down the door and break and enter my property, and what happens after that will just be what happens after that.
F around and find out, basically.
Okay. Whatever happened after that, you done broken entry. So yeah, take what you will.
Feel free to do so. You're not answering my lawyer. You said you were going to stop by yesterday. You're a liar. You said that you would submit a Freedom of Information Act request telling me what's going on right now. Instead, you show up with these false orders. And there's going to be a deeper investigation going on. Believe me, your problem is that I have the money to fight this.
Ding,
Oh
ding,
boy.
ding, 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 ding.
He's saying all the right things, and
All the right
he's not being emotional. He's just stating, how he sees her through the camera. She is very shifty, and she is bouncing around, and her eyes are going up and down, left and right, and that's an indication. You can tell when somebody is not telling the truth.
Yeah. And it's almost like she's waiting there, like it's like you could see it going in one ear and out the other.
Like she don't even hear it.
Right. Like like he said, you're self-soothing. I loved everything that he said. And that last part that he said was the icing on the cake. Your problem is I have the money to fight this, because they go after families who are less fortunate. They go after single parents who don't have someone else there to support them, or to give them the education, or to give them the forewarning of what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
He said the perfect thing. Your problem, and that is their problem, because if they can't take his children from it, sounds like he has more than one. I thought he only had a daughter. If they can't take his children, that's no money for them. Every job has a quota. if you're and they're not going to say to you directly, make sure those kids don't go back to the house so we can get this money. They're not going to use those exact verbatim, clear and concise words with you when you become a caseworker. Okay. Mm-hmm. They're going to say to you, like they said to old girl who was a caseworker, and say, you've spent enough time on that case. Let's do something else. That means you did enough of what we needed you to do here. We'll handle the rest. And usually the we'll handle the rest is they're not coming out of our care. They're not going to leave these reins, this hold of a system. We got it. You go on to the next child, and we'll make sure that child is, because that child that was in the mental facility that she said she wanted to go see, and that child was there for a week. A mental facility is almost like jail. A mental facility is an institutionalized is jail with medicine. They sedate you. I have a sibling that has been at a mental institution, and you're isolated. There's nothing but pretty much your bed and food, and like your they pump medicine in you, so you're not really even coherent a lot of the times. And so you think that they want a caseworker to go help that child out? No. They need to keep the money coming in so they can afford the medicine to pump into these kids. They want the child to feel very isolated, as if they have no one coming for them, no one to make them even more go into more of a manic episode. It is not designed for the betterment of children. Now, don't get me wrong. There are stories that are nothing like this. There are stories where children go back to their parents. There are stories where, children aren't, it's happening the right way, I'll say, however, the basis of it and the overall numbers, the majority outweighs the minority in these cases. I had so many videos that I could have played tonight of children being taken away from their parents. Now, some of the videos, like I said, there are some where it goes the right way. And when I say that, I mean, in my case, and my case is like a lot of other people's cases, my mother had drugs in her system when she had kids, which means I had drugs in my system when I was born. So they were not going to allow me to stay with her if she didn't clean up her act. Now, they did follow the procedure. They gave her a homemaker. I was too young to remember any of this, but it is in my life book. They gave her a homemaker, and she was doing well for a little bit. And then my brother was born, started doing drugs again. Drugs was in his system. They gave her another homemaker. In the book, it says her progress was uneven. And so that was, the cause of us being put into foster care.
Mm-hmm.
And so in cases like that, that is going to be the sequence of events. You can't think that you're going to keep your children when you're having them in a hospital and the doctor can clearly see that you have some type of drugs in your system. That is normal standard procedure, right? But again, this money is going into the system to keep children from their biological homes instead of the money going to the biological home, the families, to say, okay, well, let's put you in a rehabilitation program. Now, of course, it's up to the parents to fulfill these, different tasks or processes that you're supposed to go through. It's up to them. So that if they don't do it, then you already know what the consequences is. You're not getting your child back. However, I don't think that they really enforce programs like that. I don't think they really, go the extra mile to help parents like they're going the extra mile to keep these children in the system. I just don't going as hard on that side like they're going on the other side. I mean, Georgia Tann was allowed to do this from the 20s to the 50s. That's 30 years of stealing children, trafficking children, erasing records, changing names, coercing parents to sign paperwork that they have no idea what they're signing. So, yeah, this guy hit the nail on the head. I'm going to rewind a little bit.
You said that you would submit a Freedom of Information Act request telling me what's going on right now. Instead, you show up with these false orders. And there's going to be a deeper investigation going on. Believe me, your problem is that I have the money to fight this. Your problem is that I have the civil rights attorneys to bring you to justice. You're corrupt. Get off my property. You're trespassing on my property. Get off my property right now. Get off my property right now.
Oh, there you have it.
And that was that. I just don't think if he would have said some of the things that he said, she would have continued and been as adamant about those things. Because when CPS or a cop arrives at your door, you feel like you have to submit to them. A lot of I'm not saying you, but a lot of parents feel as though they don't have a dog in the fight. And it's like, these are your children. You can't let someone just come in and just take your children. And so, he kept the door closed. Everything is recorded. He even said out loud, you just sent this to me 3 minutes ago, which means you gave me no time to prepare, no time to actually read, what's in the paperwork. Again, a Georgia Tann tactic, where it's just like, here you go. We're doing something to help you out all along. This is paperwork for me to give up my children, to give up my rights as a parent. So and he said, I have the civil rights attorneys. I'm definitely going to take action, sue you guys. I have the money to actually do this. He said all the right things for her to turn around and walk away. Most times CPS workers are very adamant about getting your child out of that home, and if they don't do it on that visit, they're just going to come back like a bill collector child. Okay, they're going to come back like you owe them money, and try and try and try and try and take your child. And every single time they come out is documented. So this is all being, a case. This caseworker is building a case against you, right? They're not trying to help you. And so I wanted to, kind of go down and give a little bit of a history lesson today, because I don't think we've ever covered this before. And this is where we say the uncomfortable things out loud. And a lot of this is very uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for the birth parents. It's uncomfortable for the children. I would say it's uncomfortable for a CPS worker who hasn't been doing it for very long. However, if you've been in that profession for very long, this is just another number. This is just another tally mark, another file. And this is just another thing that you got to get done before 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, like, I definitely never heard of her until you mentioned her. And then I started doing my research, watched a couple videos. I was like, this lady was the devil.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, just how bold do you have to be to? Well, and I think the reason why she was so bold is because her father was a very prominent judge,
He was a judge.
and he got her all the positions that she, like I told you, she got fired from the one place, and then she went to another place, and then she was like, well, I'm just going to promote myself to director of this organization, and I'm going to continue with my devious plan, which didn't work where I was previously. So now let me start, you know, going out, meeting these kids,
Yeah.
offering them candy, and then next thing you know, they disappear, and their parents have no idea what happened. Or like I think the intro where she walked into the where the lady was giving birth,
Mm-hmm.
and she said, "Oh, let me take the baby for 2 weeks so you can heal."
Yep.
And
Lie. Just lying.
baby just gone, just disappear out of thin air. Like,
But it just shows you that, the most vulnerable are treated the worst.
mhm.
Like, these children didn't ask to be here. They don't know what's going on. They're not giving up any type of consent. They can't give any consent. And this is how they're being treated. This is how their lives are starting out. Like, I read on Georgia Tann, their lives are erased. And the crazy thing about that is, a lot of people, even when you're a baby and you're adopted, and we talk about this all the time, adults feel as though you'll never know the difference. When in actuality, you do. Your body tells you that you're not like the others. Like, I just don't understand how they, try to pull the wool over children's eyes, as if in time the truth won't be revealed. Like, God is all about truth, period. Like, if it ain't truth, it ain't God. So it's like, if you're not, especially someone like Georgia Tann, right? It's like you have no moral, compass, or there's nothing inside of you that is telling you that this is wrong. They say money is a root of all evil. That's all this was for, money. Back in the day, like way back in the day, adoptions used to cost like $5 to $7, which probably today, that would probably be like maybe $200 to $500,
Mhm.
right, for an adoption or whatever. But Georgia Tann saw that adoption costs money, but she saw that they weren't charging enough money. And so she's the one who hiked up those prices. She's the one that says, okay, well, it's going to be between $500 and $5,000 when it used to be $7 to adopt a child. The sad part about this is that Georgia Tann and her tactics and, you know, her plan to take these children from their homes, unfortunately, it is still stitched in the fabric of foster care and adoption. It didn't go anywhere. It didn't go anywhere. Again, we
because they didn't change anything. Like they
right.
didn't
What did
like
they really
yeah,
change?
she passed away, okay, but like for example, um, you know, I told you about the law that they were trying to pass in Michigan to allow adoptees access to all the records, and they actually rejected the bill
Mm-hmm.
because they know that people will actually listen
Like
when you
myself,
are yeah,
this
so like when you're
is judgment.
finding out the truth. What's that?
This is my judgment, my adoption. I'm trying to cover up.
Oh,
But this is mine, the sealed record that I purchased of the judgment of my adoption because I
yes.
wanted to know what it said.
I'm actually working on mine this week to petition to get all of my information, including my birth certificate. So, um, you know, it's mine. I need to have it, and I want to see what it says.
Yeah. And I just like, you know, why we're not going to stay small forever. So why withhold the information? You know, I always say, tell them young, tell them often, tell them early. Like, you know, the documents like this should be given to us when we're 18. Why do I have to go pay? You know, I think this was it probably took me maybe $30 to file this at the family services building or whatever. But it's like, why do we have to pay? You know, when Franklin was on here, they said that they, you know, $500 for him to write a letter just to see if
Yeah,
it's.
that was crazy.
I'm like, money, like it's all about money, 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 money. It's not enough that you sealed these records and they just I got this back in 2022. I think 21 is
Mhm.
when they unsealed the records. So, you know, we have to pay, and don't get me wrong, I understand the court systems and you know, having to file certain motions and complaints and judgments and things of that nature. Everybody got to make their money. I understand that. But at the same time, if your parents aren't forthcoming with this information, your adopted parents aren't forthcoming with this information, this is information that you have to pay for. I feel like if an adoptee is coming to get their information, can we get a discount? Hook us up. Like, come on.
Can you waive the first fee or something?
Can
Like
I
what?
claim this on my taxes? Can I then get it back? Like, when I register my car? Like, come on, you know? 48 pages is what exactly is in, because the only thing this paper says is 3 pieces of paper. Okay, the first page is a cover sheet because I used to work in a law office, so you know I know how a lot of this goes. This is the cover sheet, pretty much outlining what this is and saying that if any of the information is incorrect, that the person who filed it can get in trouble. But it's literally a page, and this is really a page if you put it on one page. Like, you know what I'm saying? So 48 pages. What in the world?
What the
Mine
heck?
much just says what my name is, who my new parents are, what day this was filed on. What gets me is the verbiage that they use at the end, though. It says ordered and adjourned that the said children be adopted by the plaintiffs and that the names of said children shall be as follows: my name and my brother's name. And from the entry of this judgment, all relationships between the children and their natural parents shall be terminated, as well as all rights and responsibilities of any person found upon such relationships. So it like sisters, aunts, uncles. This is what a closed adoption verbiage looks like, including the rights of inheritance under the interstate laws of the state, and the entry of this judgment of adoption shall establish the same relationship between the child and the adopted parents as if the child was born to the adopting parents in lawful wedlock, including the rights of inheritance. So it's pretty much saying any rights or any relationships that I had prior to being adopted, they are now null and void. And now my parents have those said rights. And I now have rights to my parents' inheritance if there's any. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much what mine says. That's it. 48 pages is like, that's a lot. That's pretty much a book that can be published somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, 48 pages is a lot. I'm like, did they jip me? Did they not put everything in here? Like, did they not get everything? Or maybe I didn't get, this is just a judgment. So maybe I didn't. Maybe there are other things that are, in a file sitting somewhere that I just don't know that they're there or don't know what to ask for. I don't know. Because
so is that like, do you have your, what is it, the non-identifying information? Do you have that too, or?
What do you mean non-identified information?
So like where it doesn't have names, but it'll give you like medical history or whatever. Do you have that?
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah,
I don't have it. I don't know I don't know what my parents had. See, I didn't grow up in a house where I could just go rummaging through my parents' stuff. It was like Fort Knox up in that joint. Okay. There was no, even today, I couldn't tell you where my parents' important papers are. Like, I know you talk about all the time, like, have this conversation, but I couldn't tell you if something was to happen. I wouldn't know where to look, where to go. I wouldn't know. So maybe they have, I'm sure my parents have that information, but it's never been shared with me and probably never will be.
If they had this conversation again.
I'm telling you. Names, I've never had names. I don't even the only names that I have are in my life book. And like I said, before we got placed into foster care, our great aunt took care of us, but then she passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So, if she would have never passed away, maybe we probably would still be with our biological family, but everything happens for a reason. So when she passed away, we were then placed in different foster homes. I'm sure my parents have to have some type of history on us. I mean, I was 9. Like, it got to be more than just a paragraph. Like, it got to be more.
Go ask.
What'd you say?
Go ask.
Child, you trying to start World War III? What do you want to know that for now? Why you want that paperwork? I can just hear it now. I can hear it now. What do you, I asked my dad what his dad name was, and him and my mom was like, well, what do you want to know that for? He was only your dad. I mean, I don't.
So they weren't living when you were adopted?
Huh?
They passed away before
my
you.
dad's mom passed away around the same time we were adopted, and I believe his dad. I don't know anything about his dad. I guess his dad passed away before we were adopted, but they were just like, we don't talk about him. We don't, we don't bring his name up. We don't. And I was just like, okay. Like, this is why I be having to go to therapy, child, because like, what do you do with some of this stuff? This is like, how do you can't even, there is no rebuttal, and at this point we adults, so I'm not going to go back and forth. Like, if that's not something that you wish to share, that's cool. But at the end of the day, I feel a little like odd in this situation that, now you're making it weird. Like, how people like, you're making it weird. Like, like that made it weird to me. So if I can't even ask you about your father, we're definitely not talking about my biological family and my history before getting adopted. Like, that's just a little hint of, something that I've gone through where it's just like, it's just certain conversations that I just feel like baby boomers just don't want to have. Like, they don't want to go down those roads, no matter who's asking the questions. Your own daughter can be asking you a question and just like, yeah, those files are sealed. Like, those files you're gonna have to pay a fee. That's how I felt. Like, I was going to have to pay a fee to get that information. So when foster care, adoption, when all of that is started and rooted in lies and secrecy and just falsifying, like when it's rooted in that and it never changes, imagine how the adoptee or the foster child feels in the actual situation. Right. So that's why we have these conversations for people who are not aware or people who do not know. They always say, oh, well, you're lucky or you had a great life. And those things are true. But a lot of things can be true at one time. There are a lot of things that can be true at one time. And I believe that having these conversations, we're better for having these conversations rather than not. Because again, the body keeps score, and the more you hold in, I believe the more sick you'll become, whether it's in your thoughts, whether it's in your body, you'll become sick because you're trying to hold in truths that are trying to get out some way, form, shape, or another. So just release the truth. What they say, the truth will set you free. The truth will set you free, for real.
Yeah, go get the truth.
Get the truth. Get the
Yeah,
truth.
you go get the truth.
Look, I could go get the truth. Look, I had to go around them to get this. Like sometimes we gotta do what we gotta do to get what we need. It's just one of those things. Sometimes we just gotta do what we gotta do. My file was sealed, but the law changed so many years ago. Wow. Definitely is a book. Yes, that's definitely a book. Like it would take me a while. Like, don't disturb me. I'm reading. Leave me alone. I'm reading. But yeah, we gotta do what we gotta do. But it's just a part of our journey. It's crazy how those who are not adopted, those who have never been in foster care don't even realize the searching and the answers and the things that we search for, that they don't even have to search for. It's not something that they have to even think about doing, unless somebody lying to you and you caught wind of it, or you just feel like, and sometimes people are not necessarily adopted, but your mom and your dad might not be your mom and your dad.
That part.
You don't necessarily have to have a judgment of adoption to be in the boat that we're in. Again, lies, a system based off of lies and falsifying and twisting words and twisting the truth. If that's in the history of America, it's going to stay there until somebody does something about it. And if you ain't got the money, like old boy said, your problem is I got the money to fight you. You know what I mean? One of the first videos we show, or the second video we show, $83 billion market. I ain't got $83 billion to change it. You know what I'm saying? So we got to have these conversations, and we got to spread the awareness that, this is something that is still happening in this system in all 50 states.
And they just haven't done anything since 1950.
No.
Which is wild.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I thought the story was interesting because I feel like more people need to know about, because actually adoption was really for people who were really rich. It came from the Roman Empire, and the way that they would keep their their inheritance growing and going down to the next line, they would adopt someone so they could actually inherit it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really rare back in that time, and when Georgia Tann started doing all of this, because it was really for people who were well off, to adopt.
And she started targeting the people who weren't,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
harder for them to fight for their
Mhm.
job. They don't have the resources, they don't have the money, so it's a sad world we live in, but the more you know, the more you grow. So I'm not quite sure how we can fix this broken system of ours other than spreading awareness, getting involved. Like I said, that program CASA, every state has it. CASA, CASA, CASA. And if you're looking for any literature, because y'all know I like to read, there is a book that is similar to the Georgia Tann story, and it's called Before We Were Yours by Lisa Wingate. So it kind of goes more in depth into that time frame and that time era in the Georgia Tann black baby market trafficking of babies. So if you're interested, definitely get that book to read more on it. But that's our show. That's our show for this evening. I know it's not usually adoption and foster care is heavy. Every topic that we talk about is a heavy topic. So, I'm not even
going to need a little history lesson.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
More so of a history lesson. If you guys want to support the channel, you can definitely do so. Cash App is flowing on the bottom. But yeah, tonight was definitely a history lesson into Georgia Tann and how thousands of children, over 500 children died, but thousands of children were taken, trafficked, information changed, names changed. Some parents were told that they children died. Like, it's just, it's a mess and it's a shame. And some of these people will never know their origins. There are people like Ric Flair. Wait, is Ric Flair still alive? I don't, is he still alive? I don't know.
I'm not.
Because you got to think
so.
The 1950. That's that's about 10 years before my parents were born. So yeah, like those people are still around, and they'll never know. They'll never know their origins, their biological origins. But again, like I said, the body knows. The body knows that something's not right. And as you get older, your inner voice is going to get louder and louder and louder and louder. Unfortunately, in this case, though, that inner voice will get louder, but you won't have any information or any family or anything to reference on your biological side to actually, soothe that inner voice. And so that's the messed up part about this. We were adopted. However, we were able to meet our biological families. We were able to connect with siblings and things of that nature. They'll never get that opportunity. They'll never get that opportunity. So just wanted to highlight that tonight. We will be back next Tuesday. I do have a guest. We have a guest next week. Hopefully we'll have two. I'm still in communication with one lady. Me and her have to connect. It's just been a busy week. So hopefully Friday, me and her will be able to get the opportunity to discuss how we're going to do this. But our guest next week, talked about it today. He was like, sign me up. I'm actually someone I work with. He just started. Like, this is only his second week at the job, but I found out that he's a adoptee and he's very open about his story and things of that nature. So I love people who are just willing to share. Adoptees, we don't ask for much, honestly. We just want somebody to be able to hold some space for us. That's it. Hold some space for us. So next week we will be holding space for Manny is his name. He'll be on our panel next week. And hopefully we'll be having Kristen as well. But if not, we'll schedule her at a different time. And I'll see who else can join for next week. I like to have a panel, like to have different stories and things of that nature. But if it's just and you and I, that's fine as well. I'll definitely, collect some videos that we can react to as adoptees and give our perspective. But we'll definitely be hearing Manny's story next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Central.
Cool. Can't wait for it.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I was just so excited today at work. Like, yes, I can't wait. And then Friday, I think we said in the office we were going to do a happy hour. So of course we're going to have something to talk about. Him and I, at least, we're not going to talk about it with all the coworkers, but have something to talk about on Friday when we go have a little happy hour. So I'm excited about that. Excited about next week. Well, guys, that is our show. Join us next week. Don't miss next week's show. It's going to be a good one. Again, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and follow us over on social media too. I post these clips from these shows on my Instagram two pages, Real Precious Official, as well as the Adoptee Foster. Real Precious Official and the Adoptee Foster on Instagram. Definitely follow the pages because I'll post clips from these lives on there. And that's another way that you can share and push out the stories and push out, our different perspectives on a lot of these videos and firsthand experience. So we appreciate you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Have a good night.
Have a good one.